Happy New Year, and welcome to this edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Carla Dorado. At Arlington Public News, we bring you stories of interest to Arlington and surrounding communities. In tonight's newscast, we tell you about a unique sport that is as much mental as it is physical. We go to the State House to speak to State Representatives Sean Garballey and Dave Rogers, and we discuss strategies for working and living in a 24-hour-a-day digital culture.
Plus, we'll tell you about a new book on legendary Arlingtonians from the past to the present. That and more coming up next. Please stay with us.
Our first story is a government roundup on what's been happening in town since our last newscast. We want to thank Town Manager Adam Chapdelaine for bringing us up to date on MUGAR, the School Enrollment Task Force, and the MSBA's decision on the Arlington High School rebuild.
Even though it's been the holidays over the past couple weeks, it's been a pretty busy time in Arlington. I guess I'd start with saying, for anyone who hadn't seen in the news, Mass Housing, the state agency that was taking a look at whether or not the MUGAR development would be issued a project eligibility letter. They did issue that project eligibility letter, so that means that the developer, Oak Tree, can move forward with submitting an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for that development, so that occurred. Also related to that matter, the Zoning Board of Appeals did publicly announce that based on analysis performed by the town, they think that the town is at the 1.5% threshold, which could prevent a 40B from being approved by the town, so that's also something that's happened. Moving away from that topic, we've been really focused on the school enrollment issues, starting more than a few weeks ago, but working over the past couple weeks, actually even leading up until Tuesday night at a school enrollment task force meeting, and then Thursday night there'll be a school enrollment visioning session. We have growth at the elementary level, the middle level that we're trying to address. Moving from that, the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, is going to be considering on January 27th approving the high school to be entered into their project system, which would mean we would start to consider actually rebuilding Arlington High School. So that's a big happening. Also, we're talking about the operating budgets for FY17. The Long Range Planning Committee has been meeting, the school committee has been meeting, the finance committee has been meeting, and we're trying to make some decisions about the level of town spending and school spending going into FY17. That will culminate at a meeting next Tuesday on January 12th, and then I'll be submitting a budget to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee on January 15th. Aside from that, we had our first little bit of winter last week. It wasn't a whole heck of a lot of snow, but a little bit of ice, which gave us a little bit of a headache, but I think we did pretty well getting through it. And we're otherwise ready for the winter, but knocking on wood that we don't get anything near last winter. But I think that's a pretty fair update for the past couple weeks in town.
For an update from the State House, APN talked to State Representatives Sean Garballey and Dave Rogers about the Minuteman Regional Agreement, state aid for Arlington, the MUGAR property proposal, and the representatives' legislative priorities.
Hello and welcome. We are coming to you today from the State House, where we are visiting with our state representatives, Sean Garballey and Dave Rogers. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, for being here. News has just come out this week that the MUGAR property is going to be able to move forward, according to the state agency that reviews such things, with their 40B project. Both of you are on record as being opposed to that project going forward, at least as it has been presented so far. So wanted to first of all just get your reactions to this news.
I'm extremely disappointed with the ruling. It's only the first step in a long process. I know that the Arlington delegation remains unanimously and vigorously opposed to it because of the impacts potentially on flooding, on traffic, on the schools. As much as we're disappointed by the mass housing decision, I think residents should be heartened by the fact that there is a lot of arrows in our quiver, so to speak, a lot of ways we can tie this up and fight this, and we will. And I think, I'm very hopeful. I guess I'm an optimist by nature. The 40B law is a very powerful law that helps developers. We need to be honest and candid about that. It's an extremely powerful law, tilted in favor of the developers, but we also have some considerable things that we can bring to bear here.
Okay, I'd like to move on to the next topic of discussion, which is broadly speaking the situation with Arlington schools and Arlington school enrollment. But I'd like to start by talking about the Minuteman Vocational High School and the Minuteman Regional Agreement.
Currently, we send by far the most amount of students, but yet we only have 1/16 of the vote. And that's unfair, because you need agreement among the communities, and in any type of financial conversation, obviously, that goes against Arlington. Obviously, those communities are not going to take on more burden of the costs to their districts. We wouldn't expect them to, but at the same time, it's a tremendous burden on us. So in terms of how we are going to move forward, and what would that state intervention look like? I think the only thing, or there's probably several things that would work, but the thing that would really work and help Arlington is currently the Mass School Building Authority has approved a school design of Minuteman that fits, I believe it's about 650 students. You know, we have in-district population of students and out-of-district. And in the current configuration of the Minuteman Regional Tech High School, I believe it's around 200 to 250 of those students are out of district. So this is every place from Waltham, Medford, other areas, Watertown. If you look at that configuration, it is blatantly unfair to the taxpayers of Arlington, who under the MSBA rules would have to pay for the majority of the new school when you have 200 students from out of district. So I think one of the critical pieces that I'm working on, and I know the delegation's working on, is trying to get the state to pay for those 200 students. That would certainly alleviate the current concerns, the current financial concerns, but at the same time, help us build a building that we know Minuteman needs. It's just fair to the taxpayers of Arlington.
We appreciate your taking the time out of your days to join us and to share valuable, important, constructive information with your constituents, with the residents of Arlington. So,
great, thank you.
We want to thank again Representatives Sean Garballey and Dave Rogers for taking the time to join us today. We enjoyed this face-to-face conversation and hope you do as well. For Arlington Public News and Arlington Community Media, we appreciate your joining us today, and we hope to see you next time.
Well, the town has been very busy over this holiday season. I think everyone will be quite relieved to find that the high school is finally going to get rebuilt.
That and a lot of other things are going on in town, so watch out. 2016, I think, is going to be a very important year in Arlington. And to watch the extended version of the interview with our state reps, please go to our website at news.acmi.tv.
Ever wonder if anyone famous lives in town? The new book, Legendary Locals of Arlington, answers that question. It highlights the impact of various Arlingtonians, from artists to educators and more. APN spoke with book's author and one of its featured figures, a man who helped start local farmers markets in the area.
On December 7th, Legendary Locals of Arlington, a book that highlights notable Arlington residents, was published. As they continue with their book tour, we talked with authors Barbara Goodman and Marjorie Howard about the bookmaking process. So what has the reception been like?
Oh, it's been very warm and very caring. People are very excited. It's fun to meet people who are either in the book or who know people in the book. They start leafing through it and they're very excited. They, oh, I know that person, or I heard of that person.
One of those recognizable people is Oaks Plimpton, former director of the nonprofit Boston Area Gleaners.
A bunch of us started Waltham Fields Community Farm, and it was around then that I got involved with farmers markets. I started out at the Cambridge Farmers Market, and then the Somerville Farmers Market I helped to start. And then here in Arlington, this woman named Pat Jones decided that the town should have a farmers market. And I said, well, there's one in Union Square. She'd never been to one, or rather in Davis Square. So I took her to her first farmers market, and we talked to the farmers, and they were interested. So that was 1997. One of them called me up, and I a little bit reluctantly said yes, because in some respect I figure I'm sort of an imposter, as it were. After all, I come from New York and have a Harvard accent. You know, I'm not really a local, as the expression goes. And but I certainly have kind of adopted this place as my town, I guess.
What has the book tour process been like for you?
It's been exhilarating, absolutely exhilarating. People loved the book, and I don't think they loved it because it confirms what they know about the town already, that it's a great place to live. And to learn that your neighbor is a famous musician and you didn't know that, and the person down the street won a Nobel Prize, just confirms what a great place we live in.
What do you want readers to get from this book?
I guess a sense of this town being very supportive of each other and very dynamic and really filled with all kinds of interesting things going on. There's artists and musicians and educators and volunteers who just make this a really lively and vibrant place.
Do you plan to write a second book?
If Arcadia had a proposal, I'd be interested. And there's certainly, I don't think they would do the same book idea, but again, there's enough people we could do a volume 2, but they probably come up with a different idea.
After a year of recovery from this one.
To learn more about their book, you can visit their website, www.legendaryarlingtonma.com. On behalf of Barbara, Marjorie, and Oaks, my name is Stephanie Francis, and this is Arlington Public News.
And another Arlingtonian has a book of a different nature. Author Sven Burkerts writes about the increasing reliance on technology in our lives in his book, Changing the Subject, Art and Attention in the Internet Age. APN spoke with Burkerts about the effects that technology can have at work and at home.
While most of us have embraced digital culture and have difficulty imagining an hour, much less a full day, without going through our email, surfing the web, or updating our Facebook page, we also harbor an unease with our reliance on these technologies, since we may be missing out on other, more important experiences while online. But we generally keep these concerns at an arm's length as the cursor pulses on. Joining me today to discuss this growing disquiet is fellow Arlingtonian Sven Burkerts. While you may associate him with one of his previous books, The Gutenberg Elegies, he is most recently the author of Changing the Subject, Art and Attention in the Internet Age, the basis of our discussion today. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Well, you write about one of your real worry. It's less to do with sort of the overthrow of the human intelligence by artificial intelligence and more sort of at the very rapid erosion of certain types of thinking.
I mean, I do think we very quickly adapt reflexively to the things that we do in our lives. I think it's no secret that a huge number of people will spend most of their day within 2 or 3 feet of a lit up screen with writing and pictures on it. That can't but condition us. All of our activities are conditioned to some degree by this amazing power that we have sort of unleashed, much of which is hugely good and gratifying. But I just don't think you can have any power that doesn't have a kickback effect. I think a lot of my interest is trying to think of how we can live and what we can do given that this isn't going to go away. People aren't going to say, oh, you know, we're going to embed as ever more deeply. But does that mean we're trapped, stuck, without recourse? And that's why the word attention is so important to me, and it's part of the title of the book. I basically propose kind of the restorative power of art in various ways. I don't mean just painting art, but anything that took time and imagination and, you know,
Creative pursuit.
Creative pressure to create is also something that offers us something to hold up against that relentlessness. But for that to work in any frame, whether it's in terms of listening, looking, or reading, it requires us to be able to attend to it. It makes it hard for us to become so singularly attuned to the one thing that's in front of us. And it doesn't have to be a work of art. It can be making a pie crust, but it is bringing yourself fully to bear on what you're doing in a way that suddenly, if you've spent most of your time being in some state of distributed awareness, which I think is a lot of how we are forced to live, then the action itself, almost no matter what, when we find that we're just absolutely riveted watching a snail going along the windowsill. Something happens. Something happens. That which is fragmented, at least for that moment, is made into a singular point of focus.
For Sven Burkertz, I'm Peter Bermudez for Arlington Public News.
Besides two very famous Arlingtonians that most people know about, Cyrus Dallin, the sculptor, and Uncle Sam, there are many people in Arlington, famous, past and present, who are in the book, and some who didn't make the cut.
It's true, there is enough to fill a second volume for sure. And we can maybe include some of those infamous people as well.
You mean like you and me? How come we didn't make the book?
I know, what the heck, hey.
I don't know. To watch an extended interview with Sven Burkertz, visit our website at news.acmi.tv.
China's one-child national policy, in place since the 1970s, was recently changed to allow families to have up to 2 children. APN intern Koala Shea spoke with area Chinese nationals about their experiences under the previous single-child rule and what they think of the new law.
In October, China's long-time one-child policy was finally ended and was replaced with a two-child policy. APN asked students and professors from schools across Boston about their opinions on this newly implemented policy. Professor Yu Feng from Brandeis University moved to the U.S. from China in the early 90s. He describes what the atmosphere was like under a system of tight population control in China.
The 80s and early 90s, was the period, the most serious national policy about one family, one child. One of my friends is already 6 months or so pregnant, and her factory's leaders went to his home. Not saying that you could not have this child, but saying that, okay, I have to tell you the truth. That is, if you have this child, the second child, then the bonus of the whole factory, of everyone in the factory, will be 0. Not just you will get some financial punishment, but each member of the factory will be punished as well. So, do you really want to do that? You want all the others blame you? So, and then under that kind of pressure, she had to do the abortion.
However, the professor pointed out that, in fact, the one-child policy has been loosened up in the past 20 years.
Just in those big cities, they are still carrying, a kind of modified policy of the one family, one child. All the other places, actually, no such a policy at all. The government in some of the towns and countryside, they're not really serious about that.
He also shared his personal opinion about the new two-child policy.
Family planning or control is still necessary. So I don't think that is a good policy change. The concerned party is only, some families in the big cities such as Beijing and Shanghai. It had nothing to do with most of the Chinese population.
College students from across Boston who grew up in different parts of China shared their feelings about being a single child.
I don't think there's a large proportion of families are having such kind of siblings or many children in one family. I think it's not a very majority thing.
Lots of families, they just stick to the one-child policy, but there are still some families which really want a second child, so they're going to pay for the fine. And I know those people, if they have a second child, they are going to lose their job or something, so it's pretty big punishment.
I have a little brother. Actually, I heard that my mom had paid a kind of fee to have the second child.
Did your parents ever want a second child?
I don't really know, but I think they don't because they're usually really busy and they are already having enough fuss. Only having me is in enough trouble.
I feel like having a little brother tell me how to be more responsible and how to be like caring to each other.
Please look for part 2 of our story on China's two-child policy. For Arlington Public News, I'm Koala Shea.
Cross country is an Arlington High School fall sport that runs from the end of August to the middle of November. Runners train throughout the summer vacation to prepare for the season. APN talked to Arlington High School's cross country team to learn about the nuances, challenges, and attractions of this sport. Both the boys and the girls teams won half of their meets.
Cross country for us is pretty much a series of 7 races that we run. They're all between 2.7 and a true 5K, which is 3.1 miles. And we race anywhere from in the woods to on the streets to golf courses come the end of the season.
I joined cross country the fall of my freshman year so that I could make some friends going into high school and have like a group to go to. And I stuck with it just because it was such an amazing group of people and it was so fun to come out and run every day.
Well, we did OMS running. Yeah, and we really liked that, so we decided why not give it a shot at the high school.
Yeah, and Miss Bassett really influenced our decision because she's such a great coach when we're doing OMS running that we thought it'd be like great to continue in high school.
I was in 8th grade and I used to play soccer and I kind of wanted something different and I wanted to stay in shape. So I was like, why not cross country? And I joined it not knowing anything about running and I couldn't even run 2 miles straight. And everyone welcomed me. They were great, and they just joined me and taught me aspects on how to run and what not to do, how not to get a cramp, etc. And it was just really fun.
I joined cross country because I really liked the whole community aspect surrounding it. Like everyone's very friendly, and running's also like you feel very good about yourself when you're done. You're like, wow, I really accomplished something today.
The team. Honestly, that's the main reason I came back. Is the team is so like close knit. It's great.
A typical practice, the team comes together and we have a brief meeting out at the track behind the high school, and then we all warm up together as a team anywhere between 3 and 4 laps, and then we either have a long run, a medium length run, or a track workout for the day.
The hardest part is definitely coming out and running every day. We run a lot, we run really hard routes, but like I said, the funnest part is being with the people, so it makes all the runs worth it.
I think it's really mental, and if you're not mentally into it, then you just can't have a good run. But everyone on the team makes it so fun and easy to have a good day that even if you're a little bit down on yourself one day, maybe if you like had a bad test or something in school, you can easily forget about it and have a great run.
The best part it is feeling how much easier it gets to run, right? Like how if you compare yourself at the beginning of the season and at the middle and towards the end of the season, how much better you've gotten. Like if you really have worked and you've trained, you just see it and feel it on your body and your strength, and it's just such a great feeling.
My favorite part is probably like the team itself, like the people who make up the team, because it's such like a nice group of people who are really nice.
I think my favorite part of coaching cross country is probably the camaraderie that we have as a team. Everyone seems to be really good friends, and we really work well together as a team.
I love the team. Everyone is so helpful, so nice, so encouraging, and just they have your back.
Just so many good memories.
It's a very good vibe here.
Yeah, everybody's so like positive and
it's
supportive.
really fun. I mean, I encourage everyone to join cross country. It's like no cut. It's so fun. Anyone can do it. I just say, like, please join even if you've never run. Like, just give it a try. You might really like it or be really good. Like, and even if you're not, it's still really fun. So
we have a website that's linked to the athletics page. Both the boys and girls have a homepage, and then I also coach the middle school cross country team. So if you're looking for a program for your middle schooler in the spring or the fall, we run programs then as well.
Arlington Children's Theater presented One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a play by Ken Kesey, to the local community this past month. This show is a show normally cast but with adults, but in this production, the cast consisted of teenagers ranging from 13 to 17. APN talked to the director and several of the cast members to find out why the play speaks to people of all ages.
Hello and welcome. My name is Gayatri Sundarajan, and I'm here at Arlington Children's Theater to talk to the director and cast of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. We're going to talk about why they chose this play and what makes it so interesting.
This idea of mental patients just trying to kind of make their way in everyday, you can't even say everyday life because they are in an institution and that's not necessarily everyday life. It just sounded kind of a little bit like everybody just trying to make their way through life, and whether that's in school or in work or with their families, the sort of institution became, like I said in my director's note in the program, like a microcosm for what happens in the outside world.
A while ago, I saw the movie, and I've heard lots of people talk about how great the show was, so when I heard that ACT was doing the show, I thought that it would be really, really fun to be part of it. It's
about this guy, Mick Murphy, who is committed to the institution, and he comes in, and his goal from the very beginning is to take over the room that everybody is sort of in every day. His next goal is to make the head nurse, Nurse Ratched, irritated.
She's sort of the villain in the show. Her main goal is just to keep everything in order and to just keep everyone calm.
Within that, he makes friendships with the other patients. He irritates Nurse Ratched and the other staff. He sort of makes the other patients realize things about their own life and why they are in this situation. They're dealing with trying to figure out who they are, how they fit into society. They're dealing with sexuality and relationships with themselves and with others around them. It may seem on the surface that it's an odd choice to have teenage actors do, but in reality, those are all things that every teenager goes through every day. And the kids in the show took on those roles and did such a fantastic job with it that once we started rehearsing, I knew that this was a good choice to do.
For me, it was kind of stressful to sort of like be that sort of harsh to people, especially people that are my friends in the show. It was really fun to look deeper into that mindset and sort of see why she acted the way she did.
I try to leave it open and I guess organic for the actors to kind of feel comfortable with the characters that they're portraying.
I know myself and some of my friends struggle with anxiety and things, so it was sort of interesting to see how life worked in a psychiatric ward and to sort of see how different people from all different situations can deal with difficulties and things like that, and just sort of how we all can still get through it and have a good time.
For Arlington Public News, this is Gayatri and Jay Sundarajan.
Paul, I'm just thinking about that nice little piece on the running, and I want you to know I can run for 2 minutes.
Not 2 miles, 2 minutes?
No, just 2 minutes. And I'm thinking it could be very useful for me because, you know, whenever I think about the house cleaning, it really upsets me. And I can just go and run for 2 minutes, and I can put it right out of my mind.
Well, I'll run right past your house. I don't think I could run. Maybe I could 2 miles. That might be pushing it. I don't know. Maybe a mile if I huff and puff. But.
Maybe when I was 12.
Thank you for joining us this week to explore local events and issues around Arlington. Check out extended interviews and our latest segments on the web at news.acmi.tv.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public.
Please join us next time for another edition of Arlington Public News. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Carla Dorado. See you next time.